So good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Ubuntu On Air. My name is Jose, and I'm an Ubuntu member broadcasting live from Peru. Welcome to another Charm School. This is Juju Troubleshooting 2. We're here with Charles Butler, Marco Chepi, and Matt Brozek, and we're gonna have some fun troubleshooting Juju and all the problems you may encounter when using this awesome piece of software. So you guys go ahead.
Okay, great. Where are we doing questions? Are we doing it in Pound Juju or Pound Ubuntu on Air?
This time it's Pound Juju, but next time I would prefer Pound Ubuntu on Air.
Okay, cool. So if you're watching live, you want to ask questions, if you've had troubles with Juju, feel free to use all caps question and then type your question in Pound Juju on Freenode. And we're going to pick up kind of where we left off last time, with just different techniques for troubleshooting Juju. It's going to be a very free-flowing session of let's try to break everything and then fix all the things that we can break. So last session we went over quite a bit on how to troubleshoot things locally and some things in Charm. So we're going to talk about other providers and other things that can break during your deployments and how to hopefully recover from them. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in a moment's time. Can you guys see my screen yet?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Oh, shoot. Wrong thing.
Yes, we can see it now.
Cool. Is that font big enough?
I think so, but...
All right, let me just quickly... I know the Google Hangout bar kind of sits pretty high up. So let's just do this. Block that out. Awesome. So I've set up a few environments. The first environment is an HP cloud environment. So I'm going to type Juju switch. Okay, HP cloud. I'm going to run Juju stack. Got a couple machines. Looks like everything's actually running. Well, MongoDB is coming up. MySQL, Nginx proxy website. Okay, cool. So let's do Juju add unit and MongoDB. So a lot of times what will happen is when you deploy a machine, especially when you're deploying against a real cloud provider, sometimes there's just problems getting the actual machines to spin up. So you'll notice that when you run Juju status, it says the machine state. So if we look at the Juju status output again, here it says agent state, something about it being in an error state, whether it has maxed out on the number of API calls it can make, or something happened during image lookup. Something generally went wrong. So when that happens, I'm going to see if I can get this to do that. It's kind of hard to predict these errors. They're very sporadic and just really depends on the right conditions. Given we're broadcasting on Friday the 13th during a full moon, I'm hoping we can get some of that good old-fashioned bad luck to kind of plague this demonstration. Regardless, though, there is a retry provisioning command in Juju. And this is new as of 1.18. And what this command does is it'll actually retry to set up that machine. So in past instances of Juju, where when a machine entered an error state during provisioning, there was no way to really get past that. You had to destroy the service, force delete the machine, and then redeploy your service, and it was quite tedious. This retry provisioning command will allow you to, will tell will tell Juju to retry setting up that machine again. And if it errors out, it errors out, but odds are it'll likely resolve it, especially if it was one of those weird latency issues where maybe networking was dropped or API requests were timed out, things of that fashion. So let's see if we have any machines to run against that. No, it looks like these are all coming up okay. This one's being built. This one's coming online. These two are still pending. So nothing new to speak of. So while that's going on, just want to let everyone know that this retry provisioning command exists. It takes a machine number. So for instance, you could do machine 2. It's going to tell me that that machine is not in an error state, so it's okay. But if it was, it would go ahead and try to retry that provisioning. So that's what happens. That's a command you can use for when machines go into an error state. So I've set up a Juju GUI. Here we go. So here we are. This is just a bunch of services that I kind of threw at the wall for this setup here. I was hoping one of them went into an error state, but none of them seem to have. So the next thing I'm going to bring up, it actually happened to me during a demo earlier during the Ubuntu Online Summit, where what happens when you lose your Bootstrap node? So as of right now in Juju, it's quite devastating because the Bootstrap node, the orchestration node, that machine 0, that is the sole way to communicate with the rest of your cloud. So when the machine 0 goes down, what happens? Well, first of all, when machine 0 goes down, unless other machines were turned off, the rest of your deployment will continue running as normal. So if you accidentally go into your HP console and turn off machine 0, then you have effectively destroyed your ability to communicate with your cloud, but your cloud will continue to operate as normal. So everything you had serving will continue serving before. What you've really lost is the means for which you can communicate with your cloud. And that can be kind of devastating when you need to scale stuff, change configuration, or manage your environment in general. So I'm going to emulate that right now by going to my HP Cloud instance and just turning off Juju.
Turning off the Bootstrap node, right?
Essentially, yes. I think that did it. Let's find out. No, that did not turn it off. Okay, let's try that again. All right, so if you have a bootstrapped environment and you run Juju status or you run Juju command and it waits forever and it eventually times out, there's a couple things you can do to determine what's going on behind the scenes. The first thing you can do is most all Juju commands come with a debug flag. The debug flag is great. It gives you lots of information about what's going on behind the scenes that you normally don't see in the command line. So if I run Juju status debug, I can see what's going on exactly here. So it's telling me I'm on a 119.2 installation, and it's consistently trying to dial out to the Bootstrap node, and it's getting an error, and it's going to retry over and over and over again until it eventually times out. So what I'm looking at here is essentially a failed connection to the Bootstrap node. So this is a bit problematic, given that everything goes to that Bootstrap node. In upcoming versions of Juju, you'll eventually be able to have multiple Bootstrap nodes, and they'll be able to essentially have a high availability Bootstrap node, so if one or more goes down, as long as you have one more than the number that went down, you'd still be able to retain your access to your environment. This is great for those who are very production conscious and want to have no single point of failure in their deployments. So how do you recover from this? Well, there's a couple things you can do. So first of all, log into your cloud control panel, see if the machine is still running. Odds are, unless you're in a very volatile cloud, machines don't just normally go away. I've heard a few horror stories where a cloud provider has turned off a machine, but normally it doesn't happen that way. So I know because I can take this address here. I think I should be able to ping this. Well, no. Take my word for it, the machine is still online. This is this is where Marco try to remember the password. Okay, so I'm going to go to my instances and okay, I have a machine 0 running still. This is good news. and it seems to match the IP address that Juju thinks it is, which is this .64.48. So I'm going to double check real quickly. 64.48. So yeah, so the machine is still running. So odds are something has gone wrong inside the machine that's turned off the API access. Well, I can't just Juju SSH into the machine. That would be way too easy. That uses the orchestration node to find out the mapping for Juju SSH. But I can, as long as I'm on the machine that I originally provisioned Juju with, I can SSH into it. So if I SSH Ubuntu at this IP address, I'm now connected to the machine. There's a couple things you want to do. Very similar to the local provider troubleshooting, there's a couple processes that run on this machine that you want to check to see is running. So if you run sudo initctl list, all the processes that are running. So this Juju D unit Juju GUI, this is because I deployed the Juju GUI on my Bootstrap node. The real important ones are the Juju DB and Juju D machine 0. If either one of these are stopped, then odds are there's an issue and you'll want to investigate further. There's several places to look for issues, so what you want to do really first is just start the service, so sudo start jujudb. Cool. Run a netctl list again. That's running. It doesn't turn off. If jujudb suddenly stopped, you could tail the log in var log upstart jujudb.log. And this would tell you exactly what's going on behind it. So I don't see any errors in here. It's running as it is supposed to be fine. So that seems to be okay. The next thing you want to do is start the machine 0. So sudo start juju d machine. And again, I want to tail that log. I want to make sure it's still running. And it looks like it's still running. That's good news. But I could also tail that log, which is just like JujuDB. It's going to be in JujuD machine. Oh, I guess it does not have a log for this one. Oh, this must log out to here. Yes, the machine 0 log is here. So if I were getting errors, I'd want to tail machine 0 log in var log juju. And while there's a lot of information here, a lot of times you can filter it out by searching for just things that have the prefix for error or crit for critical. These are just debug messages and info messages. And again, it's running just fine. So now what I can do is switch over to the terminal and run juju status. Environment back. And it looks like I do. So in this case, we were able to recover it. If for whatever reason, when we logged into our control panel, machine 0 was not there, for instance, it had been dropped or accidentally terminated by someone else, there really isn't much you can do in the way of recovering your environment at that point, unfortunately. If it's a production environment, you could SSH into each machine, grab the information you needed. You could then provision and bootstrap another environment, deploy your services, migrate your data, and then when you're ready to tear down the old instance, you can either do that from within the console, or you could run juju destroy environment with the force flag. What this does is this will use juju from your local machine to go over the API and terminate all the machines that were in that deployment group. So that's a way you can clean up that environment once it's gone, or simply going through the cloud console and destroying them in your cloud provider's information is another way to get rid of those machines once you've done your migration. Like I mentioned earlier, there are several things that are being done to Juju Core as we speak to provide better, higher availability of the Bootstrap node, and that will help ensure that these problems don't actually occur in the wild, where something like a random machine being turned off would affect your ability to access your deployment. So that's a couple ways that you can deal with that stuff. Let's see if we have any errors in our environment. Well, it looks like everything came up online. A couple things still pending, but I don't see any errors. So let me go ahead and create a couple relations and see if we can get some broken things to pop up. So I'm going to take this. Oh, that's broken. Well, I may have just broken the GUI from all this turning on and off of stuff. Yeah, that's definitely looks broken. Okay, it looks like it's back. Let's see if I can do some relations. Okay, we're going to go back to command line now. I seem to have upset the order of things by turning off services randomly. Did you add website to Nginx? So I think this is pretty much ready to be errored. This should produce an error in the relation. Let's do a Juju status for website. Yes, so we have an error in a hook. So I know we've covered this in previous sessions. I'm pretty sure we even touched on it briefly in the last session, but it is always so good to go through exactly how you deal when charms and services enter an error state, and especially when you're in a production environment, you just need to get them resolved right away. You could always resolve things by running Juju resolved with the retry flag. This will retry that service again and see if that fixes that hook. But if you wanted to troubleshoot and debug live, you would want to run Juju debug hooks. Powerful tool that puts you inside the service in a special tmuck session that allows you to intercept hooks before they're executed and troubleshoot what's going on in the background. So what I'm going to do is over in this window, I'm going to run Juju resolved retry website 0.
Say, Marco, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
I tried running this today. I tried doing resolved retry on ones that had a peer relation with each other, and I never did get it to redo the peer relation. Is that different, or did I just do something else wrong? So more information. So I was working on something that does like a peer relation, and so they were related to themselves. And the peer relation broke, and then when I tried to resolve retry, I had debug hooks open, and I tried resolve retry. It didn't put it back in peer relation. The hook didn't rerun for that one. Are relations different on that respect, or is it the same and I just had something else going on?
No, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever had to debug a peer relation yet.
Okay.
To answer your question, it's best to just dive straight into examples.
I can probably recreate it here if you, or not. I mean,
I'm just going to create a broken peer relation. We'll deploy it. We'll do some more troubleshooting, and then we'll come back and do this again. So I'm going to go here. All right, so I have just the charm with one hook. That's the peer relation for this service. I'm just going to deploy it really quickly. And then I'm going to Juju add unit. Cool. So we'll check on that in a second. And that'll be some more cool debug cookie stuff.
Okay.
So for this, back to the original example, your debug hooks, you just tried resolved something, and now you're able to run inside that hook's context. So if you notice, I'm inside this new tab called install at the bottom here, and the prompt is actually changed to the unit and the install and the hook name, which is currently install. So if I do a pwd, I'm in the charm directory. I can run hooks install. I kind of watch dynamically what happens. So here's a common problem. I have an apt-get install line, and it needs to prompt me for a yes or no. So I can just type yes to continue. But what I really need to do inside this charm is just change it so that there is a Y flag in there. So once this is done in a few seconds, I can actually change it live on the service, or I can change it on my local directory, re-upload and re-upgrade it, and then try again. In this case, I want to change it here first to make sure it works, and I can copy those changes to my local charm.
While this is working, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
That what you're working on is a hook context, and you get there by doing Juju debug hooks, and you're running a retry, the resolve command with a retry flag, which will like get you into a hook context, so you can go ahead and install.
Yes.
But what if I'm not in an error state, and I want to get to a hook context so I can look up a variable or something?
So there's a couple ways to do that. That's actually a great question. The first thing you can do is you can run debug hooks. Then once you've run debug hooks, trigger an event, whether it be a configuration change or some other fashion of that. If you're just looking to get environment variables or getting config variables and see what those look like, there's a new command that's come out. So I'm going to go ahead and exit this and just quickly finish this series of stuff. The command that we have is Juju run. So if I do Juju run, what it does is it'll actually run a command inside of a hook context in my Juju deployment. So if I wanted to get, say, the configuration values for a charm, I could do Juju run. Let's say I want to get it for Nginx, and I can run. This will run that inside of a hooks, and it'll give me the results. So in this case, this is actually kind of a bad example. And so it dumps out everything I get from the config get command. So I'm able to run these commands as if I was a hook arbitrarily. And I'm pretty sure, I can't actually know for certain unless we try. Oh, wrong split. But if I do Juju debug hooks, MySQL 0, I think you could actually trigger a hook with Juju run. Matt, Chuck, feel free to slow me down if I'm actually wrong in this, or if anyone knows.
You can run hooks, but it's important to note that you're not entering into the proper hook status.
Yeah.
So if you're attempting to execute a relationship hook, it might fail, because you're in the context of what's called an anonymous hook status, so therefore you can't get relational data between the units, unless it's already been cached on the unit itself.
Right. What I was getting at is if I run Juju run, if it'll actually trap over here in my debug session, it won't. Is what I just found out.
Ah, no.
That's what I was trying to do. So.
I'm not sure if this works, but you can go ahead and try just doing Juju set MySQL with no additional information.
Actually, Actually, Marco, if you run Juju debug hooks and then you target the config changed hook, should it not stop you in the config changed hook? I believe that's the way debug hook works, is that you can specify a specific hook context that you want to enter into.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no. I haven't created.
I think we lost Marco there for a second.
Marco? Well, I think we lost him again. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to remind you, you can subscribe to us at youtube.com/Ubuntu On Air. There we will be posting all our Ubuntu On Air videos. It's our YouTube channel. We have many, many things we can post in there. It can be Q&As, more charm schools, various things. And follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/Ubuntu On Air, and you will find more updates from us about the events that are the upcoming events.
Sorry.
I think we're having a community Q&A with the community team on Tuesday, so stay tuned for that.
As predicted, my Google plugin crashed. You guys see my screen again okay?
Yep.
Cool. So what I was saying is you can run the relation IDs for certain services. So Nginx has a relation ID. So we go to Nginx. We can run a relation ID for Web Engine. And so we have a relation ID here, which is Web Engine 2. We can actually use that to get relation information. So we can do relation. Let me resize this a little bit. So we can do relation list, for instance, with this Web Engine ID. And that'll give us all the units. We have one unit attached, and we can do that to do relation get and set. So we can do relation get for Web Engine 2, all the information for website 0. And that gives us the relation data. So you still can get relation data out. You have to jump arguably through a few hooks to get there in order to build the proper command line tool, because in a relation context, all this stuff is set for you, the relation ID, the Juju remote unit, etc. But it is still possible to use Juju run to get information out of the environment without having to do like a config change or something to trigger a debug hook. Yeah, but great question. Let's take a look at our environment. Juju status. Oh, cool. Still pending. Awesome. We'll wait on the cloud to catch up to our requests. In the meantime, does anyone have any other questions? Do we have any questions in chat, etc.? Feel free to ask.
We don't have anything so far.
Anything you guys want to cover?
We covered what I thought about was having units stuck in the provisioner statement.
How about the peer relation one?
I'm waiting for that to come up now. We're still waiting
okay.
for guys to spin up, yeah.
Okay. So Marco, how would you print out the environment variables in the relation in the Juju hook context?
Right, so you could do that inside debug hooks by just typing n. Yeah. You can do it with Juju run n. No, just one of the Juju ones. You could. So these are kind of the bare minimum information that Juju sets up for you in a standard hook. Depending on the hook context, relationship, or otherwise, you might have additional variables that are set in order for the commands to pick those up. But they tell where the socket's running, the context of which you're running in, some additional some additional information as well.
Okay.
Oh, this is new. I didn't know they give you the environment name. Huh.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So how would that change? So let's say you did that same command, instead of service Nginx, you did unit Nginx 0. How would
I
that
think that
information
runs as the Ubuntu user, actually. I think that's... Let's do this. Let's do service Nginx, and let's do who am I. I am root. Let's do unit Nginx 0. I am also root. Let's do Juju. Oh, it's the machine flag that changes it. So if I do Juju run machine 1, I'm the Ubuntu user. So I also think that this isn't run as a hook environment. Let's do end grep.
Go with sudo.
Yeah. So when you give it a machine, it's run as if you were doing it. This is basically analogous to doing Juju SSH with a command afterwards. This is what the Juju run command, I think, dissolved down into. So you're running it as the Ubuntu user, underprivileged user in the machine, not in a hook context. But when you give it a service or a unit flag, that runs in a hook context. There's actually a whole bunch of cool stuff inside of the Juju run command. I recommend people take a look at it for sure to see the different kind of stuff you can do with the command. It's quite powerful, especially with the all flag, being able to run commands across your entire fleet of nodes and services. But there's definitely some very cool, interesting stuff that that command provides. Let's check on that. Okay, so as predicted, the service started up just fine. We're waiting for this peer relation to essentially die because we had an exit 1 inside of the hooks. So when this machine comes online, the peer relation is established. We can troubleshoot that. I can't think of anything else to really troubleshoot. We're having another session. Yeah.
We have a question in IRC from Matt Ray. It says, if I'm doing debug hooks and I want to pause execution, leaving a hook in an error state by using exit 1, if I see Juju move on to execute the next hook, is this normal? I thought exit 1 should pause execution of hooks so I can exit from tmux to run Juju resolved retry to restart the execution.
This is a great question, and it is also a really glaring bug. Right now, debug hooks does not listen to the exit from the shell and ignores it. So you can exit all you want. It's going to assume exit 0 and progress with the execution queue. The only way to truly pause execution is to leave the debug hook session running in that hook. I believe there's a bug for this out there, but if there isn't a debug hook session, if there isn't a bug for it, we should definitely have one. I know it's one of those weird corner cases that exist at the moment. But that's a fantastic question, and it should be addressed shortly, I imagine. Just needs to have debug hooks listen for the exit that provided in the shell.
Yeah, that was a great question. I've often wondered that myself.
Yeah, it unfortunately does not respect that exit signal. This is still taking a while. It's good. I'm glad. We can talk a lot about local troubleshooting. We actually probably spend several sessions on troubleshooting the local provider in particular. We have a separate session for that planned, though, so if you're having problems and woes with the local provider, we're trying to make your life easier. We've developed a plugin to help clean up the local provider when it leaves it in a weird and broken state. The core team is also working diligently to provide a better user experience around that. So you can prepare to have, or you can expect to have better fixes in that environment shortly for the local provider. Yeah, still waiting for that. Still waiting for that whole,
Something
provisioning.
useful there.
What?
Something useful for users there that are like trying to watch their Juju status would be watch Juju status if they
Yes.
want to.
So let's do watch Juju status. That really helps me out. It's kind of a burden to look at the first 3 machines of your deployment because you're watching Juju status on a small monitor or a large terminal. This is a great segue into a plugin that was written that helps to resolve this tension. So if you do Juju, so there's a plugin called pprint, which stands short for pretty print. It is in the Juju plugins repo. It's like all together to. That's not what I wanted. There we go. So it was a small product that we cobbled together to address some of these shortcomings in Juju. Let's do Juju/plugin. You can get it on github.com/Juju/plugins. The install is here. It should work across almost all your platforms. The Juju pprint plugin looks like this though when you run it. So if you run Juju pprint, do a very condensed output of the unit information. So what you see is essentially the unit, the IP address, any open ports, and the state it's in. Subordinates are indented by 2 underneath the service they're attached to, so this makes it a lot easier to watch Juju pprints. You can get a very condensed view of the world. So we have errors. I think the service is finally finished standing up. MongoDB is also terribly stuck at the moment during the installation phase. We should probably investigate that in a minute. But let's go take a look at Juju status map B. We have relation changed errors. Thank goodness we can finish debugging this. So I'm going to split my terminal one more time. Wrong way again. We're going to resize this a bit. Juju debug. Close A. Clear this. Let's do Juju resolved retry at B0. Yeah, so it caught it, Matt.
Okay.
And to exemplify what the IRC user's name was, Matt Ray's question about if I exit 1 here, what happens? When you exit 1, so the hook progressed. If I run Juju status now, so you'll see that map B0 is back in a good state, even though we exited 1 during the debug hooks. So that's a bug that we're again addressing, like I mentioned previously. But you should be able to intercept peer relation hooks as well. They're nothing special in the event chain. They're all just events that get queued up, so they're handled as they are with anything else. And debug hooks will be able to debug any of those events that are stuck. Cool. I don't think we have any other questions, unless you guys have anything else you want to chat about. I think that pretty much sums it up for troubleshooting 2 with Juju.
It was a good session.
It's good times. So, yeah, let me go ahead and close all this out, find my Hangout window. All right.
I have a quick question, which may be
Yes.
interesting. what happens if you manually open or modify your settings? Let's say uh, you're deploying an Amazon EC2, and the charm opens port 80, and it's listed as an open port, and you go ahead, log in into your cloud console, and close port 80. Is that going to cause like any troubles
No.
when Juju tries to reclose the ports, if any? Like, because it still thinks it's open.
I think Juju will actually go and reopen it. I'm not 100% certain actually.
Only if you rerun a hook context that states open port 80.
Okay. So if you have open port, for instance, in your config change, and you close the port, but config change gets called again, it'll reopen it. Okay, cool. That's good to know. I thought it would do it. I know there's a case where it would have tried to reopen, but to your point, Jose, we could do that with Juju Run. Actually, we can do some quick tests with that. So we have an open port for Juju GUI. Juju GUI has 80 and 443 open. I can close the port right now in my... Oh, I closed it. Okay. Let me re-log into my console. Password. Let's go to access and security. Let's see, this will be HP Cloud 0. Manage rules. So we've got 443 and 80 open. I'm just going to go ahead and delete port 80 because I can do that. Now what I can do is run Juju run service blah 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 Juju GUI. So Juju won't freak out, and nothing will happen to the security group. It's very passive. It'll just delete the rule and progress on whether the errors or not. We can actually do the same thing with this just running against here. We can make sure that it actually closes port 443. So if we go back to here and refresh, we actually got rid of port 443 as well. So Juju's pretty okay with just, if you delete a port from your firewall rules and then eventually call close port against it, it will just proceed. But if you call open port against a rule you've already closed manually, it'll reopen it for you, which I'm going to do right now. And we should be back. Oh, there's 443, and there's port 80. So we're back again, all happy and running, and I should be able to get back to this cloud again. Yes. Cool. Another good question, though. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
So we have a few minutes left, so we can field any more questions people have in Pound Juju. Any questions you guys have? Anything at this point? You guys want to run through the gambit? We can try breaking things again.
No, I think we covered all the major ones. Definitely want to reinforce the fact that if anybody is out there watching this post facto and has some issues, feel free to join us on irc.frito.net in Pound Juju, or contact us on the mailing list at juju@list.ubuntu.com, or visit us at askubuntu.com and make sure you tag your question with Pound Juju.
Well, just Juju. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Too much Twitter. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's it. My camera seems to have stopped working, so do you guys see like the backward screen when I unshare?
Nope, we just see a black screen.
Black.
All right, cool. Yeah, my camera stopped working after the Hangout plugin crashed. So.
Well, thank you, Marco. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This was a great Hangout session, and we look forward to the next one, which, if I remember correctly, it's troubleshooting and working with the Juju local provider. Is that correct?
It sounds like it.
Cool.
All right.
So, thanks everyone for watching, and well, you already know where to contact the Juju team. If you have any questions, just go ahead, and we'll see you soon.